And they ended up with cattle fence type surfaces. So I want to do the last part of the homework early this lesson. Then give you a little review. Whoops. The bottom of page 3-1 that is on the classroom and I emailed everybody. Tell me if I didn't. Bottom of page 3-1, I'm going to ask students to draw a bunch of rectangles and circles rather than dealing with a starter file. And we'll just draw simple lines, rather than coming down from the quadrant and across from the middle and trimming. There's a way with OSnap tracking you can do it without having to use the trim command. I might have mentioned this last week, but my notes from a year ago when I taught this class, I sketched in my comment paper copy, hey, show object snap tracking next time. And I'm still not sure why I put that note in for week number 3. So I added it back into the handout. I had taken it out for some reason. Anyway, we'll cover object snap tracking very quickly, and then I'll walk through this wooden sawhorse puzzle. Now, I'm not going to collect this, so don't fret if you have trouble keeping up with me. The third page here is we won't address it all. I was thinking of nope, we won't address it all. Instead, I'm going to assign this Sandbox here on from a yellow, what's it called? Yellowwood woodworking booklet I shamelessly stole off the internet. And, there's a bit more information than you need here, but anyway, we're going to make the 1, 2, 3, I believe 4 different parts, and copy them and then mirror them across.
I like that shamelessly part you added in there. That was fun.
Yeah, to relieve my guilt, I make sure the the source of what I steal is printed somewhere on the handout.
That's nice.
Now, when I was practicing the other day, I made for these corner posts. I pretended I was a woodworker and literally started with a piece of a 4x4. Why can't I select that? But, the cut list here is a couple of short pieces of a 4x4, and then set your table saw to cut these notches out. Well, it occurred to me it might be a step easier if we just draw this shape with the polyline command or p-edit join it into a polyline rather than making it a block and then subtracting out 2 blocks. With me, might be repetition to demonstrate the subtract command again.
You trying to get that rabbit to go the whole length of the leg?
Yes. You call this a rabbit?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this the 2 blocks, we only need to make 1 block and then mirror it over, copy it for the second rabbit.
Yes. Yep.
But I made the blocks for the rabbits exceptionally long, because when you subtract an object, it can be, a cylinder can be, 20 times as long as the plate you're subtracting it from, or 20 times as long as the plate is thick.
Only 20?
Well, it can be perfectly the same size.
Can it be infinitely longer is my question.
Yes,
Okay.
if you can model. I'm not sure. I know they got infinite lines. The construction lines are infinite.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if you can do an infinite cylinder.
Yeah, CATIA V4 was like that. You can have a long solid. It retains the start point and the end point, but it disappears when you subtract it. It's just hidden in the tree. You can with version 4 of CATIA, you could take the part back out. The part that you had subtracted, you could reach. It would be there. That was.
Okay. I haven't quite gotten that smart with AutoCAD, having the history of a solid object so you can break it back into its individual pieces. I think there's a way you can somehow record it, but I haven't studied that yet.
And that'd be the stuff right there. That's the gold.
Yeah. Well, a word of warning, there's I think an 1/8 of an inch error in this sandbox, and I'll show you when we get there. Matter of fact, I ought to open up my sandbox and show it to you.
I did apologize. I haven't done my homework yet.
Okay. Yeah, be good for the records if you would, Dan. But I'm not the least bit worried of you. Not getting your certificate. You're keeping up with the class well. Let's see. I think I stored my finished one in student work. All right, Burgener, come on. Week 3, Paul. Yeah, before class I did this. And I got all these blocks stacked, pushed upward. And it's a little confusing because there's an ever so slight 1/8 of an inch, what do you call clearance or allowance. And not being a woodworker, maybe that's acceptable. But I debated whether to put this triangular magenta gusset plate on the dirt or put it hard up against the rabbited block. And I can see reasons to do either, but I think the intent was to have the magenta triangular gusset to be firm up against the block, and the block firm up against the seats or the benches.
Where are the benches?
The red boards I'd consider benches for the sandbox.
Okay, yeah. And the other guys are just braces, like.
Correct.
Gonna be in the dirt.
Gonna be in the dirt, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
1/4 inch.
Interesting. Okay, that another, I wouldn't call it a flaw, but you got these little notches under the rabbited blocks. Let me admit Alexander in.
Oh yeah, it's because you didn't extend it fully because of the magenta bright.
Correct. I need to modify the magenta triangle slightly for the green rabbited block to go all the way down. So anyway, I think I call that a little hand grip for carrying it, so you don't bust the seats off when you lift it and carry it.
How big is it overall?
I think 77 from sharp corner to sharp corner square. I'll let Cathuria in. By the way, this Yellowwood PDF file, I forget how many woodworking projects it's got. 20 of them or so. Adirondack chair and a couple of tables. We might use other pages of it in future classes.
Nice.
Okay, I believe everyone's that's tempted to come in. Oh, got quarter after. Okay, got one person. Here we go. Ali is coming in. Still haven't figured how you can let yourselves in. You really haven't worked hard on it. Got the thing recording. For those of you that just turned in, we got another one coming in. Kurt is coming in. Well, let me go to the handout pages here. Again, I hope you all have paper copies or on the, from the, I hope you're all looking at the 3 pages on your screen or on paper. And next time I make this handout, I might just delete the top half of this first page for today, page 3-1, because this is just busy work. We've already aligned those little triangle, pentagon, and hexagons last week, and it's the exact same procedure to align 3D models. You just pick the 3 points to align one with the other. So there's little to gain by this top half. I'll probably take it out, but I would like to cover this object snap tracking. Now, I've gotten to the point where I often just leave object snap running. And back when I was doing floor plan work for the Army, I'd use object snap tracking without even realizing I was doing it. It became second nature. So I want to demonstrate it, and I can't promise you'll appreciate it in 3D work, but for good measure, I want to demonstrate it. Second page is the Sawhorse. By the way, there's YouTube videos of making a Sawhorse, but it's a different design than this one. The YouTube video is like the center Sawhorse on page 3-3. I don't know why I did the videos with the center design here instead of the far left design. But anyway, I'll walk you through this page 3-2 to make the Sawhorse, but I won't collect it as your homework. For your homework, I'll ask you to complete this Sawhorse like I got here in the AutoCAD. Following the woodworking instructions in the Yellowwood. Okay, Elizabeth's coming in. The Yellowwood downloadable PDF file of woodworking projects. So that's where we are. However, before we get into new material, I want to do a review. Oh, come on, Berg. Here we go. I had the whole spectrum. Some of you completed the homework last week. Exercise 15 and 31 excellently, even though I forgot to show you how to subtract away the holes. And there's a hole in 15 here. A couple other students didn't successfully p-edit join all the arcs and lines for the perimeter together, and ended up extruding it into simple surfaces. Let me show you what happens when you extrude it into simple surfaces. Let me freeze the dimensions in the red layer, center lines layer. get them out of the way. Where's layer I'm still on the, what's it called? 2D drafting and modeling workspace here. So I'll freeze the red layers, and dims, and the hidden layer for good measure. Only showing object. There's another way you can use this isolate icon, but that makes the kind of grays out the layers that are not the one you want to isolate. Let me go to change the workspace. Again, down here on the status bar line, this little gear with a triangle toggles you among all the workspaces. We'll be using drafting and annotation and 3D modeling. I still can't remember for sure why I chose 3D modeling instead of 3D basics, but let's stay with 3D modeling. There's also a way you can get the workspace drop-down list up here on the, what's it called? Quick select menu, or quick select toolbar up top. I believe you simply right-click. No. Here you go. You drop down this list. Nuts. I stepped out of the boat and I'm sinking again. More commands. Well, I'll get back in the boat. You can add the same drop down for your workspace as you got here on the status bar. So sometimes you'll sit down at an AutoCAD and you'll see it's already up here in the what do I call it? The quick menu. Anyway. Anyway,
It's called. I have it on my screen. It's called Workspace. It's permanently fixed up there.
Okay. I'll try, since everybody's got this status bar, I'll demonstrate with this. Up there might be a tad easier. Let's go to the 3D modeling workspace. And let me show you, again, a couple students turned it in without P-edit joining all these lines and arcs for the perimeter. And lo and behold, you end up getting this cattle fence looking surface model. Each one of these is a surface, which is great for making Hollywood movies, but they're pretty useless to go further into engineering work. Let me undo that. So again, the way you weld them all into a continuous closed polyline so that the extrude command will make a solid instead of just a bunch of chicken wire surfaces end to end. Is go to modify panel to the polyline edit, or the P-edit command. Join works well. Where's join? Yeah, but I prefer you get familiar with P-edit. Click on P-edit, select any one of the objects. It says, do you want to make it into a polyline? Answer that by hitting enter or spacebar to accept the suggested default of yes. Invoke the join option. Select everything you want to join to the one you just converted to a polyline. Hit enter to tell it you're finished selecting what you want to join to the recently made polyline. Here you got the open option, so that's a pretty good sign that you've succeeded in creating a closed polyline. Hit enter to bail out of the P-edit command. You see it's just a single object now. Everything's joined or welded together. Click extrude, select it, and I forget how big this thing is. I'll just wing it here. Now, why is it black instead of green? Probably because I carelessly left the zero layer current. I'll set the object layer current, and I'll move this object to the object layer. So now we have a 3D solid model. You can change your visual style, formerly known as shade mode, but now visual style. Spray paint it, and you can see you've got a solid made out of the perimeter. Go back to 2D wireframe. I should have extruded the circle at the same time I extruded the the join polyline. Not a problem. The cylinder can be perfectly the same size as the plate you're trying to remove the cylinder from, leaving a hole. Years ago, if you made it the exact same size, there's some sort of glitch with the rounding off. And every once in a while, you'd have a kind of a skin across the top. AutoCAD wasn't quite sure which material you wanted on the top and bottom of the hole. But I think they've got that fixed now. Again, we can change it, spray paint it conceptual. What we want to do is vaporize, turn the cylinder into the scorching sun so it disintegrates itself and vaporizes where it's overlapping the big solid. Let's go back to 2D wireframe. Subtract command is the second little lunar eclipse icon on the solid editing panel of the home tab. And then again, we're in the solid modeling workspace. We'll click on this second one that says subtract, or type the word subtract. Follow the, well, I was about to say follow the instructions here. This is, again, I suggest you keep your command area 3 lines so you can, because sometimes information's above the command line. Here it says select solids to subtract from. So you select the big guy first. It may not be intuitive, but command line says select object. Again, that's selecting the big guy first that you want to subtract from, and hit enter when you've completed selecting. Who's coming in? Damien is joining us. The next step of the subtract procedure is select the solid surfaces or regions to subtract. I've never subtracted a surface. I'll have to play with that sometime. So again, the select objects to subtract. So click anywhere on the solid cylinder and hit enter, because that's the only thing you want to select to be subtracted from the big object. And now you can spray paint it. You see it's a the cylinder has sacrificed itself and vaporized the plate through which it went. Quickly doing the exact same procedure for item number 31 here. Again, it's probably the hard part's drawing all these lines and arcs in 2 dimensions. After that, it's pretty easy. Just p-edit, select one. Yes, I want to convert it into a polyline. Invoke the join option by any of the methods we learned in introductory to invoke options. Select everything there is to join, hit enter. Again, the open is now an option, so that gives you a warm and fuzzy. I'll hit enter or escape to, I'll hit, enter to complete the p-edit process. I'll extrude the complicated shape and the two circles at the same time. And they'll all be the exact same extrusion height. Click extrude, select both circles and the complex object, hit enter. Again, I forgot what my instructions say for the dimension here, so I'll just wing it. Now we got to vaporize the two cylinders to subtract them from the big complicated object to leave holes where the cylinders used to be. So again, the second of the three lunar eclipse icons, subtract. Again, read the prompt, select the solids to subtract from. That would be the big guy, hit enter. Now subtract the solids to subtract away. And that would be the two circles. This is probably easier done in the 2D wireframe visual style. But, if you're careful, you can tell AutoCAD which object is being selected. Hit enter when you've selected the two objects you want to subtract from the big object. That burns the holes through, so you've completed the mission. Okay, let's move on. A couple of you I'd still like you to turn in, though you're even those two are doing well in class, but I'd like to have records of, why did I give everybody a certificate if somebody only handed in half of them? Saves me having to explain. Let me minimize that drawing. Minimize that. Go back to the 3 pages of handouts. Again, this top is just busy work. Do it if you get bored on a quarantine day. I'd like to demonstrate this object snap tracking. Years ago, I did some floor plan and some 3D modeling of architecture for potential buildings for the Army. All of them had to do with transporting the Army soldiers and equipment to the railhead or the airport or the seaport to get the soldiers and the equipment over to the theater. And I found this object snap tracking very handy in floor plan work. I can't promise you'll use it in 3D work, but since I wrote a note last time I taught this to bring this back into the intermediate class, I'm going to demonstrate it. If you want to follow with me, let's see, I'll start a brand new drawing. And I guess for consistency, I'll go to the application menu down to new. And I've got my AutoCAD template still called AutoCAD-copy, but that's okay. Click open. Lose the grid that keeps popping up and this annotation that keeps popping up. Object snap tracking is the status bar button to the left of the running object snaps button. And up till now, I've told you to leave it off, but let's turn it on. And before we forget, let's double check our polar tracking angle is set for 45. I believe polar tracking does not have to be on for this to work, but it helps if you have it set for 90 or 45 and not, I don't know, 98 and 3/4 or something strange. So I believe polar tracking can be turned off, but should be set to something reasonable. To keep up with me, again, I won't collect this, but we'll draw a few circles and a few rectangles. Where's rectangle? Now say I want to draw a line for a logic or a chemistry or process, the electrical diagram. Anyway, I want to draw a line from this quadrant, come straight to the right and stop it absolutely perfectly over the midpoint of this rectangle. It escaped it. You with me? Up to this point, you could easily just draw a line excessively long, draw a line from here excessively long, and then trim or fill it at a 0 radius. But with object snap tracking, it saves you a couple steps. I'll launch the line command. You need to acquire the 2 points as if they're straight edges that magically appear. Now, usually, the first point you select automatically is acquired. Gently pull your cursor away and you can see it leaves a slight plus sign at the acquired point. In a second, you'll see an invisible straight edge line up with that in accordance with the polar tracking angles. I need to acquire the midpoint on top of the rectangle, so I'll rest my cursor just a second. Don't click, just rest. I'm sorry. Okay, we want to start the line at the midpoint. I should have started the line up here. By the way, you lose the, it's easy to lose the acquiring. Let me start over again. Line, I'll click, and it automatically acquires that with a tiny little plus sign. So I'll get the straight edge. Notice I got polar tracking turned off, but because object snap tracking is turned on, it kind of emulates polar tracking. I want to stop here and turn straight down directly over the midpoint, so I will gently acquire the midpoint. Wait, I don't know, 2 seconds or less, I guess. Pull away, it leaves a tiny little plus sign. Now check it out. When the 2 invisible straight edges line up, I get polar tracking, I get 2 polar tracking lines showing me to click next where those two polar tracking line-ish dotted lines appear. Lost it. There we go. Click. Now I can simply come straight down with an object snap, and there's nothing to trim, nothing to erase, nothing to fill in or nothing.
Excuse me. This is
Yes,
Dan.
Dan.
So you picked the circle first, you hovered over the midpoint second, then you went back up to establish the 2 green dashed lines, and then you picked in the middle there, and then picked again down at the bottom?
I think the answer is yes, but since I had a bad start, let me start over again. I'll start the line command, click at quadrant, and it is automatically acquired, or the quadrant at which I started is automatically acquired. And you'll see your first point is usually automatically acquired. Be on the lookout. If you bounce over it, you can unacquire. There I've unacquired, so now I got to rest to reacquire. Okay, now where do I click again to begin the downward line? I need to acquire the point at the midpoint on this rectangle.
And tell us when you click.
Right there, I left click.
Okay, now you're going to click at the bottom and the midpoint.
Correct, using the midpoint object snap.
Now I get it. Thank you.
Yeep. Similar again, quadrant, acquire, click. So that's about it. It gets a little tricky when you want to, draw a line to midway between your first line and the corner here. But one way is just to draw a line on top of that so you have its midpoint to attach to. I'm trying to remember, I think back in the day I'd also draw a line like right here and begin a line there. And delete. So again, I almost, when I was doing floor plans, I'd almost start acquiring and clicking, while I was humming to myself, without even thinking about it. So that's object snap tracking. Well, I got it. I'll step out of the boat again. But okay, that's interesting. I do not see it polar tracking at a 45-degree line. It appears to only polar track with 90. Let me turn object snap tracking on again. Okay. Now with object snap tracking turned on, it obeys the 45-degree angle as well as the default 90-degree angle. So let's move on. This is a rather tedious exercise. Again, for some reason I named them twice on your chart of YouTube videos. I don't know what I was thinking, but there's, I think, 4 5-minute videos in a row to do this, and then further down the sheet there's 4 more 5-minute videos in a row that do this with a slightly different tiny URL name. So next revision will fix that. Let me lose the garbage here. Wish I'd made the text a little bigger. Okay, enlarge this a hair. First step is adjust your view to be kind of sort of a southeast perspective. And draw yourself a box or a rectangle to be extruded that is 3 foot long, made out of a 2x4. Now, like it or not, a 2x4 is really 1.5 by 3.5 after the sawmill blade cuts through and the sander takes off some. So let's use the box command. I forget what I did last time. I'll start a point at length. Now remember, when you type in the length, you want to have your cursor in the X direction. Okay, maybe I should have done a southwest isometric. But I'll rest my cursor in the X direction because X is length. And I'll type 36, enter. Width is 1.5. And height is 3.5. And there's our 2x4. Let me go to Yep, I even got the, even drew the UCS coordinate here on your handout. So I should have guided you to the southwest isometric view, not the southeast. Now, because when you get a cube in this view, you end up with a six-legged spider. So I recommend deviating ever so slightly from that perfect isometric view, so that you're less likely to get those six-legged spiders when you're looking at the corner of a cube. I'll hit enter to turn off 3D orbit. Second step is copy the board upward to the top surface so that the top of the plywood, and Anna's coming in. So the top of the plywood is perfectly at countertop ergonomic height, 36 inches. Now it's possible to make a copy, and actually my handout here says relative coordinates. Let me demonstrate both ways. My handout kind of shows you to draw a guideline first, a line from the bottom corner of this board on the floor, on the ground. Rest your cursor in the Z direction. Be careful not to snap it into one of the 45-degree increment angles. If I were to click right now, AutoCAD would think I'm clicking on the floor at a 45-degree angle from my first point. So that's a common mistake. So gently check that your little gray cursor sign there says positive Z. Type 36, enter. And now it's easy simply to copy this board so that this top end point rests at that chalk line. And I'll stretch this to make a leg. Let me back up the other way. I used to teach relative coordinates, but since polar tracking came out, they're really not quite so critical. But another way, I'll explain it as I'm doing it. I'll click the copy icon. I'll select my 36-inch 2x4 and hit enter. It says specify a base point. Well, I'll specify this point here, and I need to type in the second point relative to where I just picked. In AutoCAD, this was again before polar tracking. Everybody learned how to do this. Now, to tell AutoCAD from where you are right now, Mr. AutoCAD, I want to specify the second point at a change in X, change in Y, and change of Z from where you are right now. Okay? So from where you are right now, I want to tell it, go nowhere in the X, go nowhere in the Y, but go 36 in the Z. That's a relative coordinate because you need to have a first point plus the relative coordinate before you can find the second point. If I had started this project on 0, 0, 0, I could specify 0, 0, 0, 0, 36, enter, and use absolute coordinates. Anyway, the way you type the relative coordinate is start with the @ sign. I'm getting a deja vu. I think some people like to use this dynamic input status bar button. I think that changes the procedure slightly. I tried dynamic input, but really didn't see the the advantage of using it, even though the salesman said you can't live without it. Anyway, I typed an @ sign. That's kind of a shortcut to AutoCAD, saying, Mr. AutoCAD, from where you are right now, I want you to go 0 in the X, comma, 0 in the Y, comma, but 36 enter in the Z direction. So @ 0, 0, 36. So continue my line from where it is right now up the Z direction 36 units. And my cursor can be anywhere when I hit enter. There it is. The next step, I might as well make a second copy at the same time for the third step. I want to enlarge this 36-inch 2x4 on the ground to 48 inches so it's long enough to make a diagonal leg. Okay, my third step 3 isn't very clear, and I'll show you the push-pull method for this as well. I'll perfectly make the copy perfectly in the exact same 3-dimensional space as the first. Click, hit enter. So now when I go to erase or any selection command, I draw a crossing window. It acknowledges there are 2 solid objects that occupy the exact same space. Every time I go through this, I keep thinking of that classic original Star Trek episode where some poor soul got teleported into a rock. And so there was space that was both human body and rock. Anyway, we got 2 objects here. I'll bail out before continuing the erase. I'll move the last thing created, L enter, or P enter for the object I previously selected. Alexander's coming aboard. Found one, hit enter. Okay, toggling back and forth between the Zoom window and the classroom window and the AutoCAD kind of disrupts the AutoCAD procedure. Anyway, I'm going to take that fresh copy I just made, the last thing I created, L enter for last thing. I want to take that last thing created, stretch it exactly 12 units, or move it 12 units in the X direction. That'll create a board 48 units long once I union the 2 pieces together. iPhone, I think that's Alexander. That's okay. So I got these 2 boards. Let me union them into a single piece. That's the top 2 white moons. Or type the word union. AutoCAD says select the objects you want to union together. Select them both, hit enter, and now it's as good as if I'd made a box 48 units long. Now the other way that I still have not gotten used to, you might prefer, but there's a push-pull or press-pull option icon here. And again, maybe if instead of doing it my old way of copying it on itself, moving it a foot, unioning it together, this press-pull might be more elegant. select the object that I want to, okay, I might have to go to this surface down here. Not a problem. Click anywhere in this open area and it detects the surface that I'm selecting. You get dotted line on the perimeter of the surface. Click. Better make sure it's there. Now check it out. I'm going to say, hey, Mr. AutoCAD, on this solid object, I want you to pull, what's it called again? Press pull that surface of the solid object exactly 12 units in this direction. Hit enter. And why do I have 2 there? I think I might have. Okay, I think I forgot to undo the copy step I made. I should have undooed one more time to get rid of the 2 imposed on. Anyway, the press pull object, press pull command is kind of handy if you want to widen the block. And with a little practice, I believe you can play with it on curved surfaces as well. Play with it. It might not be what you want it to do, but I believe it'll work on curved surfaces as well as flat surfaces of a block. So either way, copying it on itself, moving the new guy 12 inches, unioning the 2 together, or using the press pull to deform the box into a longer or shorter object, you end up with the same result either way. Okay, now we're in the 4th step, dead center here. And this is the one you really gotta use your imagination, kind of getting into Twilight Zone here. We're gonna set up those 3 bungee cords that I talked about last week when we were playing with the solid triangle, pentagons, and hexagons. Remember, we chose hook number 1, a bungee cord 1, hook number 2, a bungee cord 1. And set the 3 bungee cords. The first one is infinitely strong. It'll shrink down to 0. The second bungee cord is slightly weaker. The third bungee cord is slightly weaker. There is a 3D align command. Why is my tooltip not showing 3D? Looks like I got tooltips turned off. Always something. I prefer to use the old align command because it works perfectly fine with 3D objects. Somebody decided that they needed a 3D align command, which is this icon right here. And the difference is you place hook number 1 of all 3 bungee cords on first, and then hook number 2 of all 3 bungee cords on together. And to me, that's not intuitive at all. So I prefer the old align command where you put 1 bungee cord both ends on, and then you turn to the second bungee cord. Now I'm getting my tooltips back. Click the old align command. Select our 48-inch long board. Remember, it's got to be 36 just to reach the ground, but since we're at an angle, it's got to be a little longer. And later, we'll slice the part of the 48 board that goes through the floor. Hit enter when you finish selecting the object that you want to move and rotate. Now the twilight zone. Imagine placing a bungee cord on this corner that's infinitely strong, and we'll shorten down to 0 so that that point I did a second ago will perfectly match this end point I'm selecting now on the top 2x4. You know, these bungee cords are very fragile. If I move or pan, they disappear. They still work, but they disappear. I'll attach a second bungee cord, slightly weaker, to this corner. Now I want it to appear about right here, but that ain't an O-snap. So I could type NEA, you know, to invoke a near point O-snap override. Instead, I'm going to slide all the way up an O-snap on the midpoint. Now, as soon as I pan so I can see the triangle at the midpoint, I expect this black bungee cord will disappear. Let's see. Yep, there it goes. But I'll slide up from the end point and O-snap on the midpoint. Notice there's midpoints of different edges close together, so double check you're on the proper midpoint. Gosh darn it, I forgot to draw the construction line. All right, I'm sorry. Bail out again. I need to draw a line here straight down 36 and 12 inches for the spread of the legs of a 2x4. So this point right here I need for the third bungee cord. So it turns out I needed the construction line of step 1 to begin with to follow the rest of the steps of the handout. Again, drop down, click a line, select the 48, enter. Bungee cord from there to there, bungee cord from there to the midpoint of the proper edge. And now which corner do I select to bungee cord to this chalk line? You know, like either one will work, but the feet of the Sawhorse will be slightly different by the width of the 2x4. I believe my instructions were to take the back corner to there. And as soon as I click, it snaps into place. And now that point is on the surface of the leg. Right? Okay. So far, so good. I need to use the slice command. Okay, I'm skipping a few of my commands here. I need to use the slice command to slice this little doorstop wedge off the leg. The slice command is in the solid editing panel of the Home tab in the 3D modeling workspace. So click the slice command. All right, what happened? Let me hit enter. For some reason I'm still, somehow I restarted the align command again. Slice command says select the objects to slice. I just want to slice like Luke Skywalker's lightsaber through this leg, select it and hit enter. Now check it out. You got all these different options. I'm tempted to say the only one I've ever used is 3 points. You know, if I select one of the others, it's almost always by accident. 3 points is the default, so I can type 3 enter or hit enter to invoke the 3 points object. And with these 3 points, I'm going to define the plane at which Luke Skywalker's lightsaber rolls across and disintegrates everything that's on that plane. I'll hit enter to accept the 3 points method. I'll specify the 3 points on the plane I want to slice. 1, 2, 3. Next step is which side do you want? I think I demonstrated this last week, didn't I? Which side do you want to save? I always save them both by hitting enter. There's the cut it made. You know, it's a step further, but now I can see the piece I am disintegrating. And I can move it to the side if I can use it somewhere else in the woodworking project. And simply erase it away. Now we're into the 6th step. Dan, you got a question?
Yes. The XZ plane, it seems like that's the plane you just cut on. So if you were to just click XZ, would it have produced the same result?
Probably. Well, let's try the XY and see if that's a shortcut to cut it, to slice it off at the floor. You with me?
Yes, that looks like it would work perfectly.
Again, you know, I always use a 3 point, and you just pick points out here in random space. Being careful you don't follow any of the polar tracking lines, especially the Z direction polar tracking line. But 3 points out here in space will define 3 points on the Z equals 0 or the XY plane. Let's click on XY, and I believe any point along this little chalk line we drew here will be good. Or typing 0, anything, anything. No, I'm sorry. Anything, anything, 0 would specify a point on the, anyway, let's click XY, specify point on the XY plane, 0, 0, 0, it's default. That alone would work. That is a point on the Z equals 0 plane. Taking advantage of our chalk line, though, I'll click on the chalk line we drew on the floor, the Z equals 0 plane. Enter for both. There's our cut. Move or copy the piece of scrap lumber away. Yeah, you got a point there. I guess, you know, if you plan ahead and think for 2 or 3 seconds, those options will work for you.
What was the both in that command? You did a both before it cut it in half?
The both is answering the question, which side of the slice cut do you want to preserve?
Why do you keep both if you know you're erasing one of them?
I don't know. I guess old dog. I'm thinking literally. I'm, you know, running my Sawzall along that plane, and I'm too cheap to disintegrate the scrap.
Oh, I'm always thinking efficiency. What's the fastest way to get to the spot that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and, you know, 2 seconds there, you know, after several hundred of those, it adds up. You got a point.
I gotta click 2 more times to erase that piece. I don't want to do it. I want it to this. Of course, if I don't know which side I'm keeping or which side is it asking for, then I could definitely see keeping both of them.
Right. No more, I don't see any more use for these chalk lines. However, our handout does leave them there. I'll leave them there to try to stay better with the handout. My handout says use the mirror 3D command. And that might have the same, collection of options like the slice command has. So Dan, I'll take your advice and specify a 3D mirror about a XZ plane.
No, you can't do that because the 2x4 isn't centered on the XZ plane. That would be 3/4 of an inch off.
Well, I'm with you, but eventually it'll say which, specify a point.
Oh, is that how it
If I
works?
set there, then it would really be a plane parallel.
Oh, okay.
Let's try it.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, mirror 3D is right there. Click on it. What do you want to make a replication of? I'll select the diagonal leg and hit enter. Again, ZX, I believe, will save the 2 seconds, Stan. Rather than, all these years I've been doing this, I click 3 points, specify midpoint, and midpoint over here. But you're right, it costs me 2 seconds. So let's specify XZ. Now let's say specify a point on the XZ plane. I can't accept 0, 0, 0, or that will do absolutely nothing. Or it'll mirror this guy about that plane I used to slice with. I'll specify halfway through the 2x4. AutoCAD says, do you want to delete the original? Most often you answer that no. You want to add stuff, not just mirror a copy and delete the original. So I'll hit enter for no. And if the wind's blowing right, let's spray paint it. Let's twirl it around a bit.
That's
It's
nice.
successfully 3D mirror. Now, a little, by the way, let me undo. Can I undo a visual style? Good. The old 2D mirror command will work perfectly fine. If I do the 2D mirror command that we learned in introductory and specify the midpoint at each end of this 2x4, AutoCAD will assume I want the 2 points on the XY plane straight down on the ground directly below those 2 points. I don't know if this saves any time, but there's the old mirror command we learned in introductory. I want to specify this guy. Now notice down here on the XY plane is where the first point and the mirror point, the first point and the second point of the mirror line will be. There, it's O-snapping on the midpoint of that edge at the top of the board, but it's, for the mirroring process, it's down there on the XY plane. Next question is specify the second point of the mirror line. I'll hover dead center of the midpoint of the end. I believe it could be the bottom edge here, but keep it simple. I'll click it right there at the midpoint of that edge. Do you want to erase the original? Hit enter for no. Apply the spray paint, and you get the exact same result. I don't know. Yeah, I'll admit, I think I tend to use the 2D mirror command. You know, when it works, rather than specifying 3 points for the mirror plane, or as Dan pointed out, ZX enter, specify 1 point. Okay, how do we make the gussets? Well, this is a little tricky. I'm going to flop this thing as if I put a hinge at the bottom of these 2 legs. I'm going to flop it straight on the ground. We're in the 8th step here. So that would be the rotate 3D command. You notice the type in is 3D rotate. I prefer the old way that was rotate 3D. And I'll demonstrate the new way here. Click the 3D rotate command. Select the 2 legs, hit enter. Specify the base point. That would be any point down here at the XY plane. Now the tricky part, pick the rotation axis. You know, we can go in any of these 3 directions, rotation angles. The green one is the one at which we want to swing the legs. So if I click that and type 90, will it swing toward me or away from me? My experience is it swings toward you and totally disregards the right-hand rule. And you tell me if you ever come across a time that it doesn't swing toward you. I'll pick that green band, specify angle or type an angle. I'll type 90 and it swings toward me. The old way, it asks you to specify 2 points on the axis you want to rotate about. And it'll swing toward you or away from you whether you pick point 1 first or point 2 first in accordance to the right-hand rule. You interested in that, or am I fire hosing you with too much? Let me show you the old way. I can't remember if there's an icon for it or not. I guess that's, since there is no icon for it, I guess it's more reason to ignore it. I'll type in rotate 3D. Hit enter. AutoCAD selects what you want to rotate. I'll hit enter. Now it says, how are you going to define the axis through which the hinge pins go? And I guess probably y-axis would be Dan's shortcut. You know, I won't do it, but probably 1 click easier to click y-axis and then O-snap anywhere on this XY, this chalk line. But check it out. I'm going to do 2 points. I'm going to specify 2 points on that chalk line. Now notice I picked this one first and then this one. By taking your right hand and pointing your thumb in the direction that the second point is from the first point, With me, my hand is at the first point and my thumb is pointing to the second point. The way my right hand fingers curl is the positive direction. So if I were to type 90, it would flop away. So in this case, I need to type minus 90 because this old rotate 3D command follows the right hand rule instead of, and just flop it toward the operator. Hit enter. So either way, you get the same place. Now we're going to just trace this to draw a little triangular piece on the ground. There's no dimension for the height of this gusset plate, this little triangle. I'll take a line, probably polyline would be quicker. I'll draw a polyline. And I'll go to midpoint, endpoint, endpoint, midpoint, and close. And now I got this triangle. It's a lot bigger than what the handout does. Probably because the handout I did regular lines, did a lot of trimming. But since there's no requirement for the height of this plywood sheet, we'll just go, make it, what is that, 18 inches high.
So I'm kind of lost, Paul. This is Dan. Why are we laying the thing down to draw the gusset, the triangle?
We haven't yet learned how to draw a line on a plane that is not the XY plane.
Okay.
In a few weeks, we'll learn how to create a new user coordinate system. In that case, we're creating the XY plane on the end of the Sawhorse.
I follow you. Okay, thank you. Yep.
Now, can I extrude this straight down? I think I can. Extrude, select the polyline gusset plate we had, hit enter, slide my cursor in the negative Z direction. How thick's the plywood? Does my handout say 1/2 inches we got left at this construction site? So I'll type 0.5 and hit enter. And darn it, why did it go up instead of down? All right. Well, it's easy enough to move from that endpoint to that endpoint. I should have typed negative 0.5. It's interesting. Some commands take the position of your cursor and assume that is the direction you want, where others obey the positive or negative number you type in to determine the direction you want. Let's just move it from there to there. Now we can upright this entire assembly. Let's use the 3D rotate command. Select everything, hit enter, specify where the hinge pin goes, specify the green circle of the 3 rings. I believe typing 90 minus 90 will send it back where it was. Minus 90. Ah! All right, try that again. Enter. Select the green. Let me type 90. which I, okay, that kind of swung it toward me. 3D rotate, select all three pieces, enter, select the hinge pin point, select the green ring to make it yellow or gold, and type -90, enter. I don't know why it didn't do that the first time. Spray paint it. Make sure what you see is what you get. You know, swing it around, double check what you see is what you want. Now just a matter of mirroring the two legs and the plywood about a plane at the midpoint of the top 2x4. You know, I think this would be a case where the two-dimensional mirror command would be a click quicker. Drop down, select two-dimensional mirror command we learned. Select all three objects, shift and deselect that chalk line, which I should have erased already. Hit enter. All I got to do is specify any one of those midpoints of the top 2x4. And for the second point, polar track in the 270 degrees or the 90 degrees on the floor. Click and no. And then just for your sales show, I'll set it into a continuous orbit, thinking that'll impress the client. Hit escape to stop. Want to take a break? I hope from this second page you learn the, okay, my handout says rotate 3D. That's the old way where you use the right-hand rule. And again, the new way does not appear to obey the right-hand rule. And so I kind of cringe at it not being consistent with the right-hand rule. We also demonstrated relative coordinates. That starts with the @ symbol, meaning, Mr. AutoCAD, from where you are right now, I want you to go. And then after the @ sign, type change in X, comma, change in Y, comma, change in Z, enter. The ID command, I don't think we've had that yet. But every once in a while, you get kind of lost in space and say, now wait a minute, where is the XY plane? Is the XY plane on the top? Is the XY plane on the bottom? Using the ID command will give you the X, Y, and Z coordinate of whatever point you pick. Your AutoCAD tells me that somehow I got on a Z of 3.5. How did that happen? ID, enter. Pick a point at the base. I'm exactly 3.5 units off the floor. How did that happen? But this is a good demonstration of the ID command. I might have, going on thinking that all the legs were touching the floor. I'll bet you when I made this downward line, I went bad. But it's easy enough to fix using polar tracking or relative coordinates. Move. Let me erase these chalk lines before they cause more trouble. Move, select everything, enter, pick a point anywhere, Now, following the Z coordinate, I can just type 3.5 enter and it'll go in the Z direction. But to demonstrate the old right-hand rule method, or the relative coordinates method, at 0, 0, minus 3.5. From where you are right now, I want the second point to be 0 in the X, 0 in the Y, and negative 3.5 in the Z. Enter. Type ID, enter. Now they're all 0 as they should have been. Sometimes the ID command is on the ribbon. Go back to 2D drafting and annotation, and where is it? I think it's on is it on properties or utilities? Okay, properties. Interesting, I don't see it anywhere now. There it is. On the utilities panel, click this drop down, specify ID point to invoke the ID command. Click there, and I hope it says 36. I kind of doubt it, but interesting. No, it does say it is 36 units. So I'm at a loss on why things lifted up 3.5. But the feet are on zeros, the floor, and the top of the Sawhorse is at Z equals 36. Again, there's a series of YouTube videos that make a different design for a Sawhorse. All right, I got 5:30. We want to take a, what, 15-minute break?
Yeah, because already I'm gonna have to look at YouTube and kind of refresh myself on this.
Okay, again, I'll post this recording, you know, mistakes and undo and everything on the classroom week 3 assignment. And for good measure, I'll email you all the URL to YouTube. All right, let's see, computer says 5:31. Let's reconvene at 5:45. 14-minute break. Anybody got question one-on-one while we're waiting?
The question I have, Paul, on right when you started with the 2x4 lumber, wouldn't you put, like, instead of like 3.5, wouldn't you put, like, let's say 3.5 divided by 12, and you put like what, 0.125? Wouldn't you make it more precise, or would you just literally put in like 3.5?
Well, I have made the assumption that an AutoCAD unit is an inch.
Okay.
And you said divide by 12. I believe you're thinking an AutoCAD unit represents a foot.
Yes, you hit it on the head.
Now I can change it now to an AutoCAD unit equals a foot by scaling this by 1/12.
Okay.
And then instead of being 3.5, it'll be what, roughly a quarter of a unit, quarter of a foot.
Okay. All right, you answered it.
On a related subject, there's a units command. I think that's, yeah. I don't know how you're expected to remember where all these things are, but going back here on the units command, you can tell AutoCAD what you defined a unit to be with this drop down right here. Ignore this units to scale inserted content. But in effect, you're saying what an AutoCAD unit represents in your drawing with this drop down. And that way, if if you buy a mail order a sofa from Japan, and the dimensions are, I don't know, 85 millimeters. Is that realistic? No. 85 centimeters, 2 meters. Anyway, it's drawn in metric units. And your floor plan or your 3D house model is drawn with the assumption an AutoCAD unit is an inch or an AutoCAD unit is a foot. If both of you, the Japanese furniture designer, if both of you correctly specify what units you are using, you can import the 3D Japanese sofa from its drawing into yours, and the AutoCAD will automatically do the scaling. I'm not sure how common that is in industry. I think it's probably time I totally redo the handout for this exercise. So much is from 5-10 years ago. Again, there's a YouTube video on that chart of YouTube tutorials I gave you the first day. I believe it's in the assignment for week number 1. Classwork, week number 1. All right, now where? View assignment, instructions. There we go. There's the chart of YouTube videos. So I believe you can download it here. We're having trouble downloading .dwg files. And I believe everything else is easily downloaded from the classroom assignment. Or email me and I'll send you the updated version. And let's see. Yeah, here is one Sawhorse. Where's the other one? Yeah, it looks like I deleted the redundant set of videos before I uploaded this. Thought I made that change, since week number 1. Double click on this or copy paste this tiny URL. All right, Burgener, how do you, in the preview here. Anyway, PB Berg SH1. Go bring up another window. tinyurl.com. Why am I not typing up there? tinyurl.com/ I forgot it already. /PBSH1. PBSH1.
Yeah, I got it.
Berg SH1. tinyurl.com/pberg sh1. Again, it's easier if you got the Word file or Excel file, you can copy paste.
The Sawhorse, it looks like, see on the screen.
It's a slightly different Sawhorse design, but you might watch that just for extra training.
Here and slice. It's 36 inches high, 48 inches.
And with this ice cream video forming software I use, I'm restricted to 5-minute videos. I suppose I probably could be making videos with Zoom now instead of that ice cream software.
Second, another quarter point. At 3.5, 1.5. It's the actual dimension for the symbol right there. You can make a copy it and rotate another, or make a few more. Make a few more. Second corner at.
Okay, did I just make a rectangle or did I make a box?
Start with the left. These two will be the top of the Sawhorse, so it's moving.
Hurry up and alter the view. I don't think I've extruded yet.
Start three here. Three rectangles. Wash the extrude. On the home tab, the three models.
There's that workspace drop down. I think Dan says is standard issue.
Go three at once. Enter.
You can also hit enter by right click and select enter.
Enter. 48 inches long. Free orbit. Now these 3 2x4s stick straight out of the XY plane. Their ends are touching the ground and they're going straight up.
Yeah, this is
XY plane is typically often considered the ground. It's
anyway. I'll shut down.
First step will be laying these boards flat so the top surface is parallel to the ground.
Yeah, I hope the recording is still going. Again, I don't think these YouTube tutorials are. There's the set of Sawhorse exercises. Yeah, I believe these 4 here are the exact same 4 as these. And I can't for the life of me figure out why I posted them twice. But, you know, it's not like I'm trying to get money from YouTube for so many thousand of hits. You know, I think there's a couple that have maybe 200 hits, which I think will get me like a half of a cent. So don't forget about those tutorials. And there's several other websites that have tutorials. But, you know, since there's so many ways to do anything in AutoCAD, I don't know if it's wise to jump from, you know, one instructor to another instructor, or just stick with one instructor throughout all your training. And also check the date of the YouTube tutorials. They might be several years old and apply to a older release of AutoCAD. Looks like I got out of the Class 3 handouts. All right, we got 5:45 coming up any second now. Let's, I better double check the handout, make sure I haven't missed anything. I was about to say we can start the Yellowwood Sandbox, which I do want you to turn in as a homework assignment. Don't forget you can turn in by uploading in the classroom. I've never done it since I'm not a student. Maybe I should. No, I emulated a student in the geometry class. And I think well, okay, he's got quizzes that you submit. So that's different than uploading a DWG file. Before we go, let me go back to the CAD work here. Object snap tracking, 3D align, right hand rule, 3D rotate, snap tracking. Covered everything on page 3-1. Page 3-2, again, this handout is very old. I ought to mark it on my paper saying, hey, Burgener, it's time to redo this. We covered the same thing. Oh, we covered relative coordinates. Not needed nearly as much as back in the 90s. We covered ID slice using the 3-point method. And as Dan pointed out, if you stop and think for 2 seconds, you can select a shortcut rather than picking 3 points on the slicing plane. Mirror 3D is similar to slice. You know, I like to specify 3 points for the mirroring plane, but there's shortcuts if you take 2 seconds to you know, select the proper one. And I think, again, page 3-3 was busy work. I almost assigned you this park bench for homework. I think following the, you know, laying the boards flat on this curved surface might be a little more than you're ready to do. I think you can do this simple birdhouse now by using the 3D rotate command. Make the roof panels on the XY plane and move them and 3D rotate them and then slice the boards that they nail to. Anyway, let's move on to the Sandbox exercise. Again, I want you to turn this in by midnight Saturday. Again, this Yellowwood PDF assumes you're literally making this out of wood, so it adds a few steps that we wouldn't follow, including You know, these black and whites, you know, saying where to put your glue and stuff. We've got 4 different pieces in this Yellowwood sandbox, A, B, C, and D. Now you can follow the instructions. Where's the, yeah. The instructions have this cut list, which is where you kind of cut them into blocks, and then you pull out your carpenter square or your you know, all your woodworking equipment to cut the what are they again, rabbets. Out of the blocks you remove wood like you're running it through a dado blade, I believe. Or instead of making the blocks and then cutting the angle or cutting the rabbets out, you could just make them perfectly right the first time. I think I followed the instructions instead of making it perfectly right the first time. Let's start a new drawing. Let me get back to the 3D modeling workspace. Go to Start, New, pick the AutoCAD.dwt template. Turn off these 2 annoying things that keep turning on. Starting in order, let's make these little block A's here. Okay, they start, the instructions say start with a block of a 4x4 for part letter A. 3.5 by 3.5 by 7 3/8. So following the handout, I'm going to go with box, specify a point, click length, and have my cursor perfectly set in the 0 direction. And for the X length dimension, I'll type 3.5, enter. Width, which is in the Y direction, is 3.5, enter. And then the top is 7 3/8. I don't believe we can type 7-3 divided by 8 with our units being decimal. So I'll type 7.375 for the decimal equivalent. Why do I keep typing 2? There. 3.5 by 3.5 by 7.375 for 7 3/8, enter. Alter the 3D view to get the warm and fuzzy. Now from this block, we need to cut out these little rabbets, which I learned from Dan an hour ago. The rabbets are 1 by, I think that says 1 by 5/8. Yes. So let's draw some boxes that are 1 by 5/8 by at least 7 3/4. Start a point, specify length, aim my cursor in the perfect X direction, and type 1, enter, 1.625 for the decimal of 5/8. Again, if we had the units set for architectural, we wouldn't have to remember these decimals. But I think to be worth anything, you really need to learn the decimals. Enter. Now the height, it's got to be at least the height of the block we're removing this, we're going to subtract this from. Being incredibly lazy, I'm just going to hit 9 and hit enter. Now I'm going to copy this board and rotate one copy so it forms the rabbit here in the yellow wood PDF instructions. Click move, select it, enter. I'll move the copy right there. Remove the original. Now, if the wind's blowing right, I could make a mirror copy of this block to rabbit out the second corner. If I make a mirror line from either of these two corners, hit escape, about a 45-degree line. Now, in this perspective, a 45-degree line is very, very close to straight up the z-axis. So I'm going to tweak my view a little bit so that the z-axis won't be confused with the 45-degree polar tracking increment. Already lost in space. All right, we'll spray paint it. Okay, I understand what I'm looking at. 3D free orbit it around to get the warm and fuzzy. Hit escape to get out of the 3D free orbit. Return to the 2D wireframe. Launch the mirror command. Select that box, hit enter, pick anything on the XY plane, and polar track out a 45-degree increment. And again, by swinging my view around a bit, I reduce the risk of accidentally sliding up the z-axis. Actually, with this 2D mirror command, I don't believe it'll even snap into the z direction. We'll specify the second point of the mirror line and hit enter to say no, I don't want to delete the original. We'll use the subtract command. First thing today, I showed you, I redid the p-edit, join, and extrude and subtract steps from the exercise from last week. We'll click the subtract little lunar eclipse icon here, or type the word subtract. For first objects, you want to select the solids to subtract from. Not very intuitive. Deal with it. So I want to subtract from the great big block. Hit enter. Now it says select the solids you want to subtract. For some reason, I think intuitive leads you the opposite way. I want to subtract from that big block these two rabbit boxes. Hit enter. And I believe looking straight down, you got exactly the corner post that the yellow wood handout gives. Again, it might be quicker if you literally draw this with a polyline and do the arithmetic, to, like back in introductory classes when we were, following dimensions all the way around a piece of carpet tile or something. But you know, I chose to follow the handout as if I was literally making this in the garage on the table saw. We'll go to a 3D orbit. I've lost my toolbar of 3D icons again. I believe it'll come back pretty quick though. So in the meantime, I'll use the type-in commands, 3DFO for 3D free orbit. That's a view we want to work on. I believe that's a southwest isometric. Again, tweak it a hair so your Z-axis doesn't line up with 45-degree increment. Hit enter to bail out. Spray paint it to get the warm and fuzzy. My 3D viewing toolbar hasn't come back yet. Anyway, we need 4 of these. If we make one of each piece, and we can cleverly mirror one side of the sandbox to form the other 3. Let's look at part B now. Okay, B is just a simple box. So all we got to do is rough cut it in accordance to the cut list. And it's 1.5 by 9 by 68 inches. Now, depending on how we make the board, we may end up having to rotate it 3D to get it upright. You know, if we create it flat on the floor, we might have to rotate it on an edge. If we plan ahead with our box command, we can avoid that 3D rotate step. Planning ahead, I believe the X will be the, what would I say, 68. Y for width will be 1.5. And the Z will be 9. So let's go box. Slit off of the box, pick a point, select length, rest my cursor perfectly in the X direction, and type, memory is so bad, these are 68, enter. Asking for width, that's the Y, that's the narrow dimension, 1.5, and enter. Now it's asking how high do we want it in the Z direction. I want to type, is that 9, enter. We'll move this guy so that this corner here, no, this corner here makes a difference which one. So there's a couple of little allowances or gaps in this woodworking project. That piece we want to O-snap into this internal corner here. So click. Now notice, following the instructions, I think that's exactly 1/8 of an inch that the corner post hangs past part letter B. So I hope I'm in a good mood when I grade these. If you snap them slightly differently than I finally figured out the handout called for. Okay, now let's go to part number C, letter C. And that is 1.5 by 9 and I think that says 1/4. Can I enlarge this? Yes. C is 1.5 by 9 1/4 by 18. Well, let's start with a box. Actually, this one might be, rather than making a rectangular box and slicing it at 45 degrees. Well, I've followed this cut list already, so I'll continue. Let's draw a polyline that is, I'm going to end up rotating it by 45. That's okay. Let's say 18, enter. By 9, enter. 9 1/4, which is 9.25. Check this out. With polar tracking on, I don't have to type 18. I can just hover over here. And there's my polar tracking point. Remember, usually the last point you rested on or the first point you click is automatically acquired. You go out of your way to acquire the next point. Click and close. Now, before we extrude this guy, let's slice 45-degree angles. Probably could have just as easily make it in with lines. We'll O-snap there and polar track down 45-degree increments. All right, I'm getting suspicious here. Did I get lost in space? 3DFO, enter. I think that makes sense. Yeah, for some reason I was expecting it to hit perfectly in the midpoint, but then the sides of the rectangle would have to be perfect. Although, isn't it perfect? 9 by 18. Okay, no, it's 9 1/4 by 18. So that's why that intersection is not on the edge. Not a problem. We'll launch the trim command. Hit enter so that everything is a cutting edge. And disintegrate everything that doesn't look like part C. Erase the chalk lines. We blasted it in the regular line, so we need to p-edit join back together again. Again, join works, but I'd prefer you get friendly with p-edit command. Select one. Okay, it's already a polyline from the original chalk lines I drew. I want to invoke the join option. And select the other two at least. Doesn't hurt to over select. Hit enter. Open is a option, so it's good and closed. Hit enter to complete the p-edit command. Let's extrude. Select this, enter. Now, previously I stepped out of the boat, and this command does not care where your cursor is when you type the extrusion amount. So my cursor can be anywhere, and I'll say positive 1.5. And it goes upward. We'll need to rotate this guy 45 degrees. So the long side is going to the center of the sandbox. So that could be done with the old rotate command. Select it, hit enter, pick any point, and type. There we go. We want to rotate it a few increments of 45. Okay, now the hard part. How did I get that to perfectly fit? Oh, I think I'm going to have to use an OSNAP override eventually. Let me move it so it's on the inside of the sandbox. Let's turn our visual style back to 2D wireframe. And I'll move this diagonal support by grabbing it at that point and snapping it right there. Notice that there's an 1/8 of an inch, I believe, where part B goes lower than part C. Now I need to nudge this thing slightly. How did I do that? I need to nudge it slightly this way. That's right. Okay, it's coming back to me. I need to slide it so that those, well, let me zoom in a bit here. I want to slide this piece so that this edge coincides with this edge. Or better yet, that vertical. Let me see, how did I do this? Yeah, I believe the vertical lines up with the vertical on the block. Right there. So let's move this piece, enter, using that endpoint as the base. Now check it out. I'm going to invoke the perpendicular OSNAP to specify the closest point of that edge for my second point. Remember OSNAP overrides? Hold the shift button and right click Specify perpendicular. And select any point on that edge. And it didn't work. Well, I'm going to do the exact same thing again and expect different results. Enter, select, shift right click perpendicular. It insists on going down to the X plane, XY plane. Well, I don't remember having this issue. Let's move it exactly straight up its thickness. Spray paint it. Nope, that doesn't do it either. Hate it when this happens.
Don't you just have to snap over to that other face there now?
I'm not following you, Dan.
The board that you created on the left.
Okay.
Can you rotate your view so that we can see where those two pieces made up?
Interesting. My icon's still not working. 3DFO.
Yeah, so you have a gap right there. You just got to move it over whatever that distance is and you're done.
How do I know that distance?
The measurement. Analysis. Do we have an analysis? Do we have an analysis?
Was that Sally?
Yes.
Short answer is I don't know, but I assume by analysis you mean will it highlight the interference? And,
Yeah. Yep. Face to face.
I don't know how to do that with AutoCAD, and I better not say that AutoCAD can do that.
Okay.
What kind complicates it is that block does not go down to the ground.
Well, do a intersection right there.
That's not touching, is it?
Isn't that? Oh, it's not touching.
No.
Bear with me here. I'm going to draw these lines in space and hope that intersection right there I can move the corner of the triangle to. Let me do a 3D free orbit again to make sure I didn't accidentally snap to the XY plane. I think everything is in order. Good measure. Let's do an X-ray. And a 3DFO since my, all right, now what happened? Always. Anyway, I think I can move it to that chalk line I just drew in open space. Move, select the gusset, hit enter. Grab it by the end point and snap it to that intersection. I believe I can erase these chalk lines I drew out in open space. I guess because I followed the polar tracking line, it continued out above the XY plane rather than O snapping to the XY plane. I'll erase those two chalk lines. Last, how are we doing on time? Got about 25 minutes. I think we're right on the money now. And again, because these pieces are not perfectly sized, you got that 1/8 inch there, and you got a little pocket underneath the post. Those things kind of complicate things. Let's do a 3D FO. I believe it's correct now. By the way, this would be a lot easier to understand if we'd assign colors to each part. I should have had you draw, layers A, B, C, and D. And each part is on a separate layer, and each layer has a separate color. I think it'd be a lot easier to understand what we're looking at if each part was a different color.
All right, we got one more piece to make, and then we can mirror.
Correct. I'll bail out the part D. Hello. Begins 77 long. And I thought that was a typo at first, but I finally figured out, okay, I got it now. They're right. 77 long. Does that say 3/4? Yes. 3/4 by 5.5 by 77. And then we'll lop a 45-degree angle off the corner. Help me remember. 3/4 by 5.5 by 77. Back to AutoCAD, we'll draw. All right, here's another use of relative coordinates. I'm going to launch the rectangle icon, pick a point anywhere. It's asking for the other corner of the rectangle. Well, from this point, from where you are right now, Mr. AutoCAD, I want you to go 77 in the X. And what was that again? 5.5 in the Y. At 77, comma 5.5. Or was it 9.5? 5.5, right?
Yes.
Enter. Probably should have done it with the box command. Typed all 3 coordinates. But to get the warm and fuzzy, I'm going to measure the distance and compare. Remember the command to measure distance without placing ink on your drawing? DI for distance. From there to there is 5.5. Distance there from there is 77. You can extrude this guy 5/8, nope, 3/4. Again, the extrude command does not recognize where your cursor is, so I can be down here and type 0.625, enter, and it'll go upward. We still need to slice the ends of a 45-degree line. I'll just draw a guideline. No. I can do it with a 3-point slice. Now, I don't believe one of those shortcut options will work in this case. 3DFO, because my blankety blank and 3D viewing icons messed up. So I'll tweak it so that nothing is lining up with the Z direction.
Excuse me, Paul, you made that 0.625 instead of 0.750.
Always something. All right, let's use this press pull. I think I can latch onto the top surface and drag it up by 1/8, 0.125. DI enter again. DI enter again. Click, click. Thank you. Back to 75, 0.75. Let's invoke the slice command. Select it, hit enter. Now, is there a shortcut? I don't believe there is a shortcut. I don't want a plane parallel to XZ or YZ or XY. View is like sticking your lightsaber right into your screen, which I can't imagine when you'd ever want to do that. Z-axis surfaces. I'm going to hit the 3-point objects and specify 3 points. 3, enter. I want to there, and telescope out the polar tracking 45-degree angle. And that'll be 3 points on a plane that'll lop this thing off at a 45-degree angle. Everybody with me that wants to be?
Yep.
Now, taking Dan's advice, it says specify the point on desired side. I want to save it on the left of the slice, so I'll click over here, and that saves me the erasing step. Get the warm and fuzzy again. Yep, it is what we expected it to be.
You're making me proud.
Okay. 3DFO. Double check everything is in space where we thought it would be. Now the hard part is I remember I need to line up this endpoint with this sharp endpoint. And the sharp corner will hang out exactly as the instructions say. And at first I thought the middle of this edge would be in the middle of this column and all sorts of weird stuff. We'll move up. I forgot to do this guy. Go back to 2D wireframe. Slice again. Select. Enter for 3-point or 3 enter. These 2 endpoints, and very carefully make sure I'm polar tracking the right way. Last thing I want to do is specify a Z direction. Anyway, get back polar tracking there. Which side do I want? I'll save here. Move this guy by grabbing it at that sharp endpoint and positioning that sharp endpoint right here. Again, if things were different colors, it'd be a lot easier to wrap your brain around this.
You could just go to properties and change color quickly.
All right. You know, again, I think I pointed out, and when you get into 3D work, keeping color by layer is not so critical as it is with two-dimensional drawings. Let's see, red for the, I forget which part that is. We'll call that part, say, blue, escape. Part B, say, green. And part A, we could leave it as color number 7, but we'll call that, sign that one magenta. Let's do a spray paint quick. Do with F3D FO. Make sure everything is as we expect it to be. Again, there's that little 1/8 of an inch space down at the dirt line. I'm trying to think, is there a way we can polar array this entire assembly? Or do I need to mirror these two pieces over here? What's the quickest way I can replicate these 4 objects into the entire sandbox?
Where's your rotation point for a polar array?
Well, that would be, yeah, I'm thinking dead center in the middle of the sandbox.
Can you intersect those 245s on the top plate, you know, that seat?
Ah, that's a good idea. All right, we'll take regular lines. Scale them. L for last by some distance that's plenty long enough. I believe I can mirror this guy about a center point. So if I use that as the array or center for a 4-item polar array, will everything go right? Who's going to put money on it? All right, polar array. Select all the colored stuff, but not my chalk lines. Hit enter. Polar array is asking for base point axis of rotation. Now, we'll O-snap at that intersection. And change the items option from 6 to 4. And nothing will go wrong. Now my icons are working. I believe, oh, we got to delete the those chalk lines for the polar array procedure. By the way, another thing I find annoying, it seems like at will, I get this, it pops into perspective instead of parallel. You see how the back column, it appears smaller than the front? It's like a vanishing point perspective back in the manual drafting days. I would just as soon it stay all the time on parallel, but sometimes it seems to make the decision for you. Oh, okay, we got to erase these guys. All right, you want to get into user coordinate system to create one in accordance with our view. Replace our, you know, our name and date and all that stuff on the XY plane.
Let's get it.
Say again, Dan.
I said, let's get it.
All right, this is a little bit ahead of time. You know, it's easy enough. You can put, you know, Dan space WK3.DWG and for good measure date. You know, at least your name I want, preferably the file name, Dan space WK3. But say we want to, you know, like grab a grease pencil right now and literally grease pencil right across our computer monitor. Okay, to do that, we would create a user coordinate system that perfectly matches our view. And I apologize, I think there's a list of, is this where they are? Yeah, here we go. One of these is view. Why am I not finding it? Okay, I think it's going to be a couple of steps. You know, I'm tempted just to type UCI, you know, UCS enter. UCS previous. Well, by the time we get to that week, I'll find the icons. Bear with me. UCS enter. View is one of the options. So, okay, so how far in or out of this object is that plane going to be? Well, frankly, it doesn't matter. If you save your drawing, you know, it's going to be, your name is going to be, you know, right there, and you won't see where it's floating in space until you do a 3D free orbit. So I'm going to click view. Now where to do in this user space, where is text command? Rather than going back to drafting an annotation, I'll simply type MT enter for multi-line text. Specify a point, right click, specify a height. Specify a right margin. I'm going to name mine Paul space WK3 and .DWG. And for good measure, 29 September 2020. Do I need AutoCAD Intermediate? Nah. Click outside the text window. There we go. Print them out on to a PDF file. And there's always different ways of plotting to a PDF, and some are better than others. I think DWG to PDF is what I use. I lost my AutoCAD at the office. Got to get it reinstalled. I think this is the one that has the least surprises. What to plot? I'll specify a window that I want to plot. And eyeball a window. Something went wrong. I think I hit the wrong mouse button. apply to layout, so we don't have to make all these selections again if we bail, go return. Again, anytime you see apply to layout, black, click it. So it'll remember the settings you've made. Click preview. Now what's left? It's not centered on the paper, is it? So we'll right click, exit back out. Good. Okay, brought us back here. We want to center the plot. There it's in black text again. Click it so I don't have to check center the plot every time. Preview again. And that's how it'll come out on paper. Right click plot. And I've got to go all the way to my D drive. D drive, AutoCAD class, 2020 fall, student work, week 3, Paul. I got to give it a new name because I haven't named the file yet. I'll name the PDF plot Paul space WK3. It'll automatically place the PDF after this text. Maybe capitalize the W to be consistent. Save. There it is. I can attach it to email and send it to my instructor now. How do I get out of here? Well, actually, I shouldn't have said that. I don't want your PDF. I want your DWG. But, next time I teach, I might put this PDF as, this is what your deliverable is. Save the drawing file. Smart enough. Save the drawing file, Paul space WK3. Save. Miller time. Anybody got any questions on anything? Again, because of the little air gaps, it's a little bit tricky. You got an air gap under the post, so the post perfectly sits on the triangle piece. It's kind of intuitive that the post would go down to the dirt. The way the yellow, what's it called, yellow wood does it, the post sets on the red or the magenta triangle, whatever color red triangle. Is that a good design? Personally, I think water can accumulate back here in the pocket, but they don't ask me these things. And again, another complication is the dimension of the, I think this is block B. It's 1/8 of an inch under the red triangular diagonal support gusset, whatever we call it. Let me look at my, okay, I got about 2.5 minutes yet. Make sure I covered everything. Polar tracking. Page 3-2. Again, this is long overdue to be updated. We covered right-hand rule. Remember, you put your palm, put your right hand at your start point and put your thumb on toward the second point of your rotation axis. And the positive rotation direction is in accordance with your right hand fingers. There's a few more rules about right hand rule, but let's leave it at that. Relative coordinates, blast from the past, starts with the @ symbol and type the change in X, comma, change in Y, comma, change in Z, enter. ID is a quick and dirty to tell you XYZ absolute coordinate of a point. Slice 3 with the shortcuts as Dan pointed out. Mirror 3D, we didn't use a line for the sandbox at all. Not sure if I could have created a use for it. Again, some busy work, waste of paper, sorry. And your deliverable. Now, how do I get it back so that this text is legible? Well, that's a little tricky. That's a UCS. I think you got to pick the text as an object. UCS, enter. Object option. Select the object to align. I'm hoping I can specify this text and the UCS will line up. Now type the word plan, enter. I want it to be the current UCS. And there we got it recovered back to the random view that I created the UCS at. All right, we're past 6:45. Anybody got any questions? I sure hope in an hour I don't cuss at myself for forgetting something.
How soon will this be on YouTube? I was kind of close, and then I got lost in the sauce because I was too busy watching and paying attention.
I understand. It is difficult. Give me 2 hours tonight.
Okay.
So by 9 o'clock-ish, takes a long time to compile or, process. I've been ordered to make it available, the day of the class. So maybe 8 o'clock. And again, I'll email the URL to where I put it on YouTube for good measure, as well as today's Google Classroom assignment.
How are you going to do all that and watch the presidential debate also?
Oh, I'm afraid to watch the debate. I'll get too fired up. I'll wait and listen to Sean Hannity tell me what happened.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Sean Hannity is kind of the right-wing side. I'm not sure what Rachel Maddow, does she do the... Anyway, any last words?
Thank you.
Always a pleasure, Dan. Shutting down. See you next week. And YouTube video will be ready within 2 hours.
All right, thank you.
TTFN.